Dear church, let's talk longevity in youth ministry. Hello and welcome to the Dear Church podcast. I'm your host, Chris McCurley, and I am joined today by my friend, Jerry Elder. Jerry has been in youth ministry for a few years, right?
Couple.
A couple. Jerry, tell us how long that you've been at this.
Well, it's 41 full-time years now.
Wow. Okay.
And then
41.
Yeah, it's a blessing. It's a blessing to have been able to do this because, as well as I do, Chris, most guys don't do it this long. And this is not a pat on my back. I tell people the Lord has blessed me every day. Yeah.
Well, and it's not unusual to see someone who has been at a congregation preaching, for many years, or who's been in ministry as a preacher for 41 years or even more. Youth ministry that defies odds, because typically we see the youth minister route go from youth minister to maybe an associate or a college minister, and then maybe to the pulpit or whatever. But, to stay in youth ministry, it typically you age out of that, is what people think. And here you are still going strong. Talk about the key to that. What is allowed you to be able to be effective for this long in youth ministry?
So I'm a firm believer in the power of prayer. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when I was at the West 7th congregation 40 years ago, I was 23 years old. I had a group of ladies came to me. They said, there are 10 of us and we're going to call you by name every day for 3 things. One is for you to instill the Word of God into our children here at West 7th. Number 2, that you might have the health to continue to do this work. And for 3, sanity.
So, we all need that, right?
Right. And so ever since those ladies started praying for me, Chris, honestly, I now have a different set of ladies that pray for me, honestly, every day. And I believe the power of prayer that helps me. That's not the only thing, but I would tell you now, that's one of the very first things that I believe in. I believe that there are people praying, not just for me, but for their youth ministers everywhere. They're praying for them everywhere. Come on, be with our kids, take care of them, love them, show your passion, show them Jesus. And then I think that's what I see in that. So that's been one of the things, the power of prayer that's helped me in that. I think the second thing is when I made a move from West 7th to Spring Meadows to where I'm at right now, I met with their elders. I was 53. And so so let's just even take 53 for example. And I asked them the question, why do you want to hire a 53-year-old youth minister?
Valid question. Yeah.
And the answer is because you love the Lord with all your heart. You have a passion for our young people. And so, and those 2 things were the biggest things right there. You have a passion for them. And and to be honest with you, you don't want to preach.
Right.
and don't get me wrong. I tell people all the time, I can preach. I do speaking engagements. I preach and things like that. But my passion is for our young people.
Yeah. And we need people that have a passion for that, right? I mean, I think that's what makes us work here as a staff at Walnut Street, is nobody wants the other person's job.
Right.
We all stay in our own lane. We're all willing to step out of our lane and take care of business whenever need to. But, you've got the same situation at Spring Meadows with Chuck Morris and Dan Winkler, and you guys all know your role, and that role is well defined. And I think that makes it work, right?
Oh, it's 100%. And one of the things I would encourage any congregation to understand is we still work together. We are a fabulous team. And I need Chuck as much as Chuck needs me. And we both need a whole lot of Dan. So
everybody does. Yeah.
Everybody needs a lot of Dan. And again, yes, and we have a wonderful children's director, and it's just the complete package of, and I'll say it this way, I think you'll get this. We all love the Lord's church. And in that package of loving the Lord's church, we all have our own little lanes, but we sure work together, because I tell you, I value Chuck Morris's opinion on young people. And as much as we will talk about on a staff meeting, hey, I'm getting to preach on Ephesians 4 this morning. And what do you think about that, Jerry? Man, I value that so much.
Yeah. Having a staff being able to interact like that is just incredible. I know it's been such a benefit to me. Talk a little bit, Jerry, about over the years, some of the biggest changes that you've seen. I would assume social media, the advent of the cell phone. I mean, those are probably obvious ones. But in your 41 years of doing this, what has been some of the biggest changes that you've seen?
Well, overhead projectors are no longer used.
Yeah, right. Flannel graphs.
I tell people, the youth group, kids with me all the time, they say, so how was it being Shem, Ham, and Japheth's youth ministry?
I love it.
I tell them, in my 40 years, honestly and sincerely, I can think of, Chris, 2 to 3 culture changes in 40 years.
Yeah.
And you've experienced, you've seen culture changes.
Right.
And I'm not talking about just culture changes within the Lord's church. I'm talking about culture changes within our world. I think about the things that our young people experience today that they did not experience 40 years ago.
Right.
I see the changes for betterment of things that we weren't doing 40 years ago for young people. And let me give you some examples. We are more mindful among our young people's mental health today than we have been in the past. That is not to disregard anything that we did 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we just didn't know.
Yeah.
But thankful through education, through learning more about some things, we're able to more cope with some things today. Now, on the other side of that coin is I see some things that we did 40 years ago that we struggle with today.
Yeah.
And and so it's a two-sided coin, how we have evolved as a church among this too. I see leaderships more involved in young people's lives today. Yeah. And if leaderships are not involved in their youth groups, they need to be. They need to know where they're going. They need to know what they're studying. They need to know things about their family life. They need to know things. That's shepherding, because they are sheep too. Sure. They are sheep too. And so I think that, you said some things like, the social media stuff. Yeah. Look, I remember a phone tree. Okay. We had I remember taking the phone to get up and putting the message out, hanging the phone up, and these phone calls would go out. All the family phones, the landlines. Yes. Today, I picked this baby up, and right now, while you and I are talking, I could connect with at least the whole congregation within 30 seconds. Right. Those are the changes. We know those changes happen. Yeah. One of the things that is, let me give I gave some of the positives I've said, but let me give one thing that bothers me, and I shouldn't say bothers me, concerns me, is within our young people's lives today, their coping capabilities. And a lot of this has to do, I think, with post-COVID. I've talked with several counselors. I am not a counselor. However, I deal with a lot of counselors. The post-COVID generation is dealing with some stuff today. The anxiety is at a level I've never seen it before. And that has caused problems within moms and dads. And moms and dads don't know what to do with their child because their child's dealing with this. And so counseling is at an all-time high with our young people.
I've noticed that.
What concerns me about that is the fact that, what's next? What's the next thing? that comes in for our young people. Suicide rates are at an all-time high within our young people. I'm not going to sit back and link that COVID. I'm not going to link that COVID, but I do think because of some changes that has happened with social media, with the internet, with things like that, it has opened doors to hurt our children.
Yeah.
And what do we as a church do about that? Well, honestly, I'm not sure we're well equipped, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm really not sure we're well equipped. But this is what we are equipped with. We are equipped to know how to love. We are equipped to know how to show compassion to our children. We know how to be. We know how to have the compassion for our families. That means you go and you sit in the mom and dad's home. You hug their neck when their child's having a hard time, or when a child is having to go through a thing. And a lot of times, here we go. You learn to keep your mouth shut and just listen.
Yeah. Great points. Yeah, I think, we're always going to be bombarded with new things, and we've got to be able to adapt and adjust and figure out how we're going to handle those. And, that's key in ministry, whether you're the preaching minister, the youth minister, college minister, whatever. I'm sure over the years you've had to adapt and adjust. And I think that is the downfall of a lot of ministers who have been at it for a very long time. They just refuse. And I don't mean to offend anyone who may be listening, but, one that may say, well, I'm just not using PowerPoint, or I'm just not doing this, or I'm just not doing that. I refuse to get an email and all that kind of stuff. Talk about some of the things that you've had to adapt and adjust to over the years in order to be effective.
Right. So, again, going along with the time, and as much as I joke about it, it was true. I remember when we used the overheads to project songs, okay?
Yeah.
And I remember people that didn't like it. And I thought, I said, this is a way for everybody to do at a camp setting, because I don't have to print out 300 booklets to go to church camp now. And I've got this unique way with 300 slides. Well, 300 acetone sheets of paper.
Right.
By the way, I still have it over here. Okay. I still have them over.
It's a relic.
It'll go into the elder antiquities one of these days.
There you go. Yes.
But you go from things like that. And I'll say this, even teaching models, Chris, you think about teaching models that we had. We would be sitting into a classroom, and it was nothing uncommon to be in a 30-minute, let me back this up. Nothing uncommon to be in a 45 to 50-minute class setting that I would teach 45 to 50 minutes and not be as interactive with them. But then we started learning about this thing called attention spans.
Right.
And that the average teenage attention span today in 2024 is about 8 to 12 minutes. That's for a teenager. Yeah. So that means every 8 to 12 minutes, I have to do something different in my teaching style. So you talk about adaptations. Hey, I'm telling you, 40 years ago, I could go into a classroom, I could sit there and talk with these kids. Most of my teaching has always been object lesson, interactive. I want to hear them, get them to regurgitate. But I've had to make those adjustments in teaching styles. And as it worked, it's not always 100% successful, but I've learned to do with what the kids. I also learned to do this, and it goes back to that key word of listening to your young people. Right. When you listen to your young people, they will encourage you and help you in your teaching styles. Study methods. Look, you want to talk about changes among study methods among youth ministers? Look, even among preachers, 40 years ago, all of these books that are behind me, you see behind me, I was physically opening these books weekly, 6 or 7 volumes of stuff around my desk. And to be honest with you, when I made a move, I got rid of 1,500 books because I can find those 1,500 books in 30 seconds through the internet. And again,
I did the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we those are the things that we have to change. Now, among our children, I go back to our children for a second, and pardon me for squirreling, but that's Jerry Older's part of one of the things in that, going back to our children, is, again, listening to them and noticing what works best. What works best for Jerry Elder may not work best for you. And I am not, I would tell people, I'm glad to be able to do some things my way. And these are things that have worked for me. Social media has worked. You were asking about some things that social media has worked for me. Right next door to me over here is the opening of my garage. This is my garage. 22 years ago, I had 6 of my students that came to me and said, Mr. Jerry, Monday night Bible study is not working at the church building. I said, why not? Do you only see 6 of us here? I have never been a person too concerned about numbers. I've just been a person concerned about souls, one at a time. Right. And they said, our friends won't come to the church building. I said, oh, okay, let's meet at the house. So we met at the house, went inside, had the Bible study, came out. They said, it was all right. And then they said, oh, hey, Mr. Jerry, can we go out to your garage? Because I have a little Mustang or two, and they want to see the vintage Mustang. So I bring them out here, and one of my kids goes, "This is it." What? He goes, "This is where we need to have Monday night Bible study." And I looked at him and I said, "You're crazy. There's no heat. There's no air conditioning. There's not even walls. There's just stud walls. And but this is the place, Mr. Jerry." Okay. So for the last 22 years on Monday nights here, the last 8 years now, we've done Facebook. We started off on Periscope. Do you remember Periscope?
I do remember Periscope, yeah.
That was Twitter. That was on the Twitter. That was the first live action. We actually started off on Twitter with an iPad.
Yep.
But we started with Facebook, of course, now Facebook, YouTube. We got all these avenues of presenting. I don't know. I don't even look and see how many people watch on a certain Monday night. I don't care. But my care is about the ones that attend here. And we may have anywhere from sometimes 2 or 3 to 40, 50. And the most I've ever had here was 125. And they did not fit in the garage.
I was about to say, that's a pretty packed in bunch there, I would think.
The most you can sit in here is like 70.
Yeah.
And that's like this.
Yes.
Kids don't care. Kids don't care. Those type of things, those type of changes have been very beneficial. Look, you do podcasts, which you do a tremendous job on your podcast and things like that. These are the changes these are the venues we have to go through. Because, Chris, they're going to sit and listen to your podcast. I have not reached that point yet. I've had people ask me about it, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that's a Jerry Elder thing.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. I think that has been an Achilles heel of the church, is our unwillingness to move forward and to treat the past like our hero. And we just want to live in the past. And I've said it before, I'm not so concerned about the church getting to the 21st century. I wish we'd just get to the 20th century, right? We'll worry about the 21st century later. But, we do. That kind of has become something that is a bit of an obstacle for us in the church, is that we want to live in the past and we don't want to move forward. Any kind of change is bad, that kind of stuff. And no, I mean, the methods have to change. Of course, the message doesn't, but the methods have to change. And you're talking about adapting, adjusting. Along with that, I did want to bring up the Garage Devo because it does air on Monday nights on your Facebook page, and it does seem to be very effective. You see a lot of kids, or at least I do every time I look at it. There seems to be a lot of kids there. Talk about just some of the creative ways, because I think that goes along with it. You got to be a creative person, or at least that helps, and coming up with creative ways to get the message across and to help kids grow in their relationship with Christ.
So when we first started the garage, reason we call it a garage, it's a garage. Yeah. But the first, I'm a huge object lesson person. I will carry a bag with me. I will carry things all the time to get across points to our young people, because I believe that what they see is a lot of what they remember.
Yes.
And so the very first lessons, the first 20 lessons was me breaking down a car.
Oh, yeah. Something you know a little bit about.
And every part had a spiritual backing behind it.
Sure.
I remember taking a chrome bumper. In fact, I've got that was just rusted and everything else. And I used that bumper, brought it in, and I had the kids to look at it. And I said, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to get rid of the rust on the chrome. And they were like, we don't know what to do. I said, oh, you don't? I said, surely you know some way. And then one of the guys looks over there. He looks and goes, hey, there's a grinder over there. You can get that grinder and we'll get that rust off. I said, well, yeah, but then you're going to damage the bumper. I said, but can you get the rust off of it and leave the chrome? And then you take the opportunity to say, here is something that will dissolve that rust away. Gave every one of them a pair of gloves, a solvent, and as they rubbed the solvent on there, the rust started dissipating and the chrome started shining through. Man, doesn't that sound a whole lot like sin? Because when we are the chrome, when we are the people that shine for every day and shine for the Lord, sin sets in, and what does it do? It crusts us up. But we need a solvent to get rid of it, and that's the blood of Jesus.
Yep.
Those are the type of lessons. And I've got a series. I did a series of what I call bag lessons. I brought a different bag in every week, and something was inside of the bag. And so that's the type of lessons I try to do. A person that is very, very influential in my life, is much younger than me, is Philip Jenkins. Philip is the same way. Philip and I idea swap every now and then, and I watch what he does, and he watches things I do. And I think that's one of the things according to creativity, Chris, is watch what other people do. There's nothing original under the sun for all of us, but find the things that work and adapt it to yourself. Adapt it. Those are the type of lessons. Right now on Monday nights, for the last 4 months, we are going through the book of Matthew this year. Or I say it may take a year. But what I'm doing is I'm saying, let's go through the eyes of Matthew.
Yeah. God
comes to him and he says, Matthew, I want you to write the gospel that you saw. I'm going to help you through the Spirit. But Matthew, I want it to come through your eyes. And as we're reading the book of Matthew, this Jewish tax collector, it makes a difference in how I read Matthew sometimes. The gospel, the message is still the same. But when I put myself in his shoes at the Sermon on the Mount, when he is not, according to his book, he's not even an apostle yet until chapter 10. So that's the type of creativity. I want them to get into the shoes of Matthew. That's where we're at right now. So when they come in, they've got, I hand them all the little solo book of Matthew that's got the notes. You can take those in there, and they come in with their books and they're writing all these notes from what they see. And I listen to them. What you don't see on air is you see the first 30 minutes of where we study. What you don't see is the next 30 to 45 minutes of where we have the conversation with each other.
Yes.
And it is so in depth.
Oh, I bet it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Hey, Jerry, talk a little bit about, over the years, some of the biggest challenges and then some of the biggest blessings that you have experienced.
So, The challenge is some of mine are just personally within myself. Okay.
Yeah.
Being 63, you do start to wonder when you're 50 years old, is this what I can do the rest of my life?
Yeah.
But I have always had the individual. I don't call them characters because character sounds like a cartoon person. The individual that has had the most influence on me from the Word of God is Caleb of Joshua and Caleb. You think about those two old men that gathered together at the end. And you remember what Caleb tells Joshua when he's handing out the land? What does Caleb tell him?
Yeah. He's ready to go take the mountain, right?
Give me the mountain. I will protect you.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things you talk about, the challenges. Can I still do that? But I'm asking the Lord, give me the mountain. Because I want to be an advocate for our young people. I want to be their mentor. I want to be their brother. Some of those challenges has come again with my age, but that's all self-centered. I mean, that's me. Some of the challenges also that I've endured is someone would say parents. I'm going to be honest with you. I can count on one hand the number of parents that I have had a conflict with.
Yeah.
And it's because, but I'll tell you, that's because of good leadership that said, let us take care of those things. There's been challenges, even within family, there, raising your children, when your child was not in the youth group, when your child was in the youth group, when your child's post-youth group, and now then, those type of things, balancing your time as a youth minister. My wife is a wonderful, wonderful person because she married me. Because she told me, she says, I'm not marrying a preacher. I said, you're not marrying a preacher. You're marrying a youth minister. And she probably has looked at me and said, that's worse.
Yeah. Is that better? Yeah.
The time management, I have been gone more than I should sometime. I know. I do try to even to this day to ask my wife when an engagement or an event that takes place, I ask her, what do you think? And I can only think of 3 times now in my life that my wife has looked at me and said, I need you here.
Yeah.
And so those challenges with your family are very important. But my wife also knows this, Chris. We don't have a job. You and I don't have jobs. We have ministries.
Yes.
The interns that I hire, I changed the wording. No longer does it say job description. It says ministry description.
Good. Yeah, I like that.
Because if we don't, we're not going to pay a person what they're worth for the time that they place in. It's not going to happen. And so my wife says, you're doing the Lord's work. Go do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The greatest blessing, I'd be careful because I get choked up a little bit on this one.
Yeah.
Last week, Nathan, I'll just use his first name. His mom was in my youth group. Nathan is 18. And for the last 4 years, they had moved back to our area. And I've been praying for Nathan to become a Christian. And I can't tell you the number of hours that I sat with Nathan.
Yeah.
And Nathan, you know the truth. I know it. Yes, sir, I know it. What's holding you back, Nathan? And he would never answer. He would never answer. And he goes, I just know what I need to do. Last Thursday, I get a text that says, I need to become a Christian now. That's all it said.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll meet you at the building. And he became that Christian. That you and I, we have a new brother.
Yeah.
That's after 4 years. And the blessings is watching every soul give their life to Christ. And by the way, don't let this world fool you. There are young people and adults giving their life to Christ every day.
Yep.
This church is not dying. This church is growing. The Lord's church is good, fantastic.
Yes.
Don't let the naysayers take us down.
I totally agree. I've seen that same thing in my travels, is of all the negativity that you see surrounding the church and even religion in general. I have seen such the opposite. I mean, I've seen young people, deepening their relationship with Christ. I've seen, young men step up to the plate as youth ministers and ministers. We're in good hands. And I think you can always point out the negative if you look hard enough, but there's so much good that's going on. Hey, Jerry, before we let you go, tell me, tell our viewers or listeners, if you could give one piece of advice to, a youth minister that's starting out right now, what would that be?
Please don't quit.
Yeah.
Please don't quit. I know the heartaches with leaderships.
Yeah.
I know the heartaches with families. I know the heartaches of working with some staff. I know those heartaches come in there. But why are you doing this? Why? We're doing this because we love an almighty God.
Yes.
We love a God that gave his son. And this world needs to know about that. This world needs to know about his son and who is going to do it. And there is so much talent in this world. Look, there is so much more talent out there that's better, that's so much better, that's going to be bringing the Lord's church up and making it even stronger. I'm glad to be a part of a tool in a toolbox.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I am. I would, if I was joking today, I'm a 10 millimeter in a box, because everybody uses a 10 millimeter on a car. So,
yeah, exactly.
But that's what I would do. Don't quit. Please don't. And here's another thing. You young men that love to speak, love young people, let me encourage you to go into this ministry. The Lord needs more hands. The Lord needs more hands and feet. And yes, you can do it working a secular job and do this. And by the way, if you do that, the Lord expects us to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we need ministers working full time. We need the John Marks. We need the Timothys. We need these people that travel and do this work. And by the way, we need to do kingdom work.
Yes.
Local work is wonderful. But I'm thankful I'm at a place that says, hey, look, Jerry, go. We're going to put you out there.
Yeah, I love that. Jerry, thank you so much for being on today. I mean, this has been insightful, and I know that it's been helpful to the many that are tuning in. I do want to let our viewers and listeners know that if you have a question about today's episode, you can email me at chris.mccurley@rippleoflight.com. And if you have a specific question for Jerry, we'll forward it to him, and I'm sure he'd be willing to answer any questions that you might have. Jerry, I just appreciate you being on today. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate everything that you do, and love this time together. And hope y'all have a great day.
Me too. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Sincerely, Chris.